In light of the recent news that came out of the Disney Investor Day, I want to spend some time talking about two books that I believe have a lot of potential. And believe it or not, these books are still blue ocean opportunities as of this recording. If you're curious what I'm talking about, stay tuned for the video. Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this episode, I am going to spend some time talking about two books that I believe have some potential to go up in value as a result of the announcements that Kevin Feige actually made at the Disney Investor Day. And there have been a lot of books that are starting to blow up as a result, but as of this recording, I think that these books still have some great potential. If this is your first time watching my channel, I want to encourage you to actually hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so that you don't miss any of the content that comes out from my channel. And I certainly want to encourage you to go ahead, regardless of whether you've seen my content before, to hit the thumbs up button and to also leave a comment behind. The way that this video flows is that I provide you with the names of the books and then I give you some rationale to basically support why I think that there's some opportunity here. And then we also take a look at some data where I basically point out where you may or may not want to chuck over some money. So let's get to the first book. The first book that I want to talk about is Amazing Spider-Man issue number 37. And this is an awesome book that happens to be the first appearance of Norman Osborn. Now, there are several reasons why I believe that this book has some potential. First, we heard from Kevin Feige that Secret Invasion is going to be a story that comes to the Disney Plus streaming platform. Norman Osborn actually played a pivotal role in that story arc. And he was a villain that basically became a hero that then was put in charge in the aftermath of this entire thing. He was put in charge of everything that was Stark Tech or S.H.I.E.L.D. And he basically was the man that was in charge. And over the course of the story, he actually, again, played a pivotal role, especially towards the end where he basically killed the enemy. And that is why he was placed in charge, because it was done very publicly and the entire world was able to see him rise to the occasion. Another reason why I believe that there is a lot of potential in this book is because of who Norman Osborn actually is. He is the Green Goblin, arguably one of Spider-Man's greatest enemies, partly because he actually knows the secret identity of Spider-Man. He knows that he's Peter Parker. And over the course of decades, these two guys have battled time and time again. And so I think that by introducing Norman potentially in the streaming service allows Kevin Feige to get him in the universe and then over time have that Green Goblin persona maybe come to the surface and potentially even appear in a Spider-Man movie down the line. Now, when we take a look at the data associated with this book, what I can tell you is that in high grades, this book is really expensive, right? There is no doubt about that. And so to that point, you may want to drop down a few levels in the grades. And where you might be able to find a really sweet spot might be around the 8.0 range. Because what you see as that at an 8.0, the book actually becomes somewhat affordable. At present, this book has an FMV at an 8.0 of $300, and the sales are slightly below that at present. And so as you go down a grade, the book gets even less expensive, but like anything else, you want to try to get the best possible book that you can afford without, having an impact on other things that you are trying to do. One thing to consider is that the FMV that I just mentioned actually is for a graded comic. you could go raw with this book. There are a lot of copies of this book out there that are still raw, that are also affordable, so that is not a bad way to go either, especially if you can get a higher grade raw book for less money and then get it graded yourself if you decide to go down that path. The other thing that I have to mention here is that the best book when it comes to Norman Osborn to get, of course, would be the first appearance of the Green Goblin, that being Amazing Spider-Man issue number 14. That book is terribly expensive, and so I don't know that you want to go that route, but if you have the cash, there is nothing wrong with going with low-digit Amazing Spider-Man. The next book that I want to talk about is one that has been discussed off and on over the last couple of months. But with that said, this book is still in many cases in the blue ocean territory despite how many times it may have been mentioned thus far. The book in question is Astonishing X-Men issue number 6. And this is the first full appearance of Abigail Brand. Now, why is this important? It's important for a couple of reasons, and in some ways it is tied to some things that we recently heard from Kevin Feige. We know that Secret Invasion is going to happen. And if you read issue number 1 of Secret Invasion, what you would see is that Abigail Brand is on the forefront of what actually happens in that story arc. Literally, she is the first point of contact for the Skrull invasion. And truthfully, it's not just Abigail, it is in fact SWORD, which stands for the Sentient Worlds Observation and Response Department. This is a branch of S.H.I.E.L.D. that operates in space. And so if you have an invasion from space, it only makes sense that they encounter SWORD. The other thing that I should make mention of is that this book has somewhat been mentioned before because it is rumored that SWORD will appear in the WandaVision show. And this is a show that is going to be debuting in January, so that's why it's been battered around just a little bit. And people are thinking SWORD, Abigail, it makes kind of sense. And now when you hear Secret Invasion, I think that it all kind of comes together. And in my mind, it comes together in the form of Astonishing X-Men issue number 6. So the other part of it is that Abigail actually plays an important role in the Secret Invasion. She is the person that actually frees Reed Richard, who was being experimented on by the Skrulls, and allowed him to basically turn the tide of the battle. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the data for this comic. And what I will tell you is that for a speculative buy, depending upon where you are, this book could be considered a little too expensive. At a 9.8 graded, this book has an FMV of $200 and sells right at FMV at $195. But the interesting thing is that if you drop down to a 9.6, you can shave off roughly 50% of that cost simply by dropping from a 9.8 to a 9.6. And I can tell you a 9.6 is not a bad comic. And so if you go lower down the grades, you can of course save yourself some money. But because this is somewhat of a modern book, I would not go too low. In my mind, 9.6 is probably where you want to be, or try to find this book in the wild. Try to find a raw copy of it, but make sure you take a look at it to ensure that it is at that 9.6, 9.8 thresholds if you decide to do it. So there you have it. Those are my 2 Blue Ocean spec books for this episode. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, I want to encourage you to hit the thumbs up button and leave a comment behind. If you agree with these or don't agree, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you want to check out more of these videos, they are available to you here on the channel. With that said, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.